I just can't see it. I can't see the big brown eyes, the pretty smile,
or the fierce hair.
I can't see the things my mother saw in me.
When I look in the mirror, I can't see a beautiful daughter,
sister, or friend.
See a person who's less
than everyone else.
less than perfect.
The person staring back is not who I hope to be.
Don't get me wrong, I want to be fierce and strong.
And all those things, but it's not easy. I don't fit in.
Some days it's more than I can take.
So I don't even bother.
I don't go to school.
I don't go outside.
I don't do anything.
Because everything and everybody is a reminder of what's wrong with me.
But even though it's hard,
And sometimes I want to give up. I won't.
I can't.
because it's not about me anymore.
It's about us all.
All the other real girls out there.
I don't have to go through life alone anymore.
I'll lean on my friends.
I'll lean on my family.
And I'll lean on my real girls. Because I too am real.
I'm fearless.
Like her,
And her.
I am authentic.
like her,
And her.
I am a rescuer.
Like her.
and her. And I'm a trailblazer.
Like her. And her.
And together,
We are all.
Real girls.
Well, hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. I'm not sure what to call it, but it is a happy day. I'm very excited because this is our first ever virtual event. And because of COVID, one of the positives is that we all learned how to do these types of events very well. So thank you for joining us for the next couple of hours. I hope that you are inspired and refreshed and determined to learn how to become not only your most authentic self, but learn how to be your own rescuer. I often say when I'm talking to a lot of women that when we're on the airplane, one of the things that we hear the flight attendants say is before we assist anybody else with their oxygen mask, we need to make sure that we put our own first. So today, you have taken the first step to putting on your own oxygen mask and securing it to make sure that you're good. Because when you're good, everybody else in your world is good. And so I'm happy to be a part of that step with you. That video, I don't know about you, but it gave me chills, actually. As you can see, I was a younger me with a lot more hair, but the sentiments are still the same. I still believe in empowering women. I still believe in encouraging authenticity and for all of us finding our voice. And so with that said, I do not want to delay it any longer. I just love this next young woman. Mick Zazon is and has become such an inspiring young woman to me. We connected a few years ago, just randomly, social media, and we might have met each other at the Y, at an event that I was doing a keynote for. And it was just a connection because a lot of her story parallels with mine. And so whenever I have an opportunity to put a young woman on a platform to tell her story and encourage her authenticity in her story, I am all over it. So I know that you are going to enjoy the time that we spend with Mick Zazon this morning. Mick, welcome.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm so great. How are you?
I'm good. It's great to finally be here. There's a lot of planning that has gone into this, and I'm super excited to have you today. So
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited as well.
yeah, no, COVID, right? It kind of came and it kind of turned everybody's world topsy-turvy, right? And we were supposed to do something together. I think right before COVID, we were planning to do that. And then you had a virtual event. And then I said, hey, it would be great. I'm having a virtual event. Let's trade. Let's do it for each other. So it's always cool to be able to share, if you will, and be able to work together. So for lack of, seeming or sounding cliche, right? Tell me which of, we're going to start this off with this question.
Okay.
Tell me which of the 4 words in the acronym for Real Girls Fart that you resonate with the most. Fearless, authentic, rescuer, or trailblazer?
I would say trailblazer. It would be trailblazer. I rewind. Real and then trailblazer. I hate picking just one.
Yeah.
From a very young age, I have never been able to filter my feelings or thoughts or anything like that. And so it's always been in me to be real. Now, with societal pressure to be like everybody else, it was a constant battle of mimicking others or comparing myself. And throughout the years, I slowly realized that I could be as loud as I wanted to be. And that's when trailblazing came into play.
Yeah, because when I first, I felt kind of silly actually, because your platform was actually already pretty huge when I met you. And so I was just like, okay, Mick Zazon. So I go and I look on your Instagram handle and I'm like, oh, okay. So she's all about body positivity. She's about, truly, I can see why you resonate so much with being real or authenticity, because if you go to her Instagram handle, you would see that she truly is a authentic trailblazer. There's no question about it. And so I guess I want to know, what exactly started you on that path?
I always joke with my friends that I've lived through multiple lives, and it's true. Like, a lot of the stories that I share on my socials and, when I do speaking opportunities, they're like, wait, you did that? Wait, what? Like, I lived in India for 6 months. And content warning for those who have been through abusive relationships or eating disorders. I went through a 4-year-long abusive relationship from 17 until 21. And I also struggled with 3 different eating disorders, orthorexia, bulimia, and binge eating disorder throughout a period of 6 years. And I was a nationally ranked soccer player. So all of these things, like, throughout my life, I didn't ask for, but I was like, okay, I guess I got to deal with it because there's no other way to do it. And I just started to speak my truth, and it didn't come easy. When I started social media, I was a weight loss coach. I did bodybuilding, I did powerlifting, and I was very much that fitness influencer that shared weight loss tips online, that fed into diet culture and comparison and everything. Because I was sharing transformation photos of my weight loss, but in reality, behind the scenes, I was struggling more than anybody could possibly imagine. Mm-hmm. And, almost 4 years ago, which is crazy to even think, I hit rock bottom, and I decided to go into eating disorder recovery and get help for CPTSD. And that's when I started sharing my truth authentically. It was so scary. And with everything I shared, I was shaking. But I think that's the beauty of it. It's knowing that what I'm doing is right, even if, the world is trying to silence me.
Yeah. Do you think that, because I would imagine, like, right now, first of all, I am on the older spectrum of millennials. So you can't get any, so it's kind of, with me, social media is very interesting. I think when I first, finished college or maybe started adulting, MySpace That should
Oh,
tell
I
you.
remember it. I remember
Yeah.
that. Yes.
So, this whole phenomenon, right, of being able to connect with everybody from all over the world and being able to connect with them, pseudo connect, showing them and letting them know into your life and what you're doing, can be kind of nerve wracking at times. And so, you have an uber enormous following now. It keeps continuing to build and to grow. And I've seen your platform evolve as you have evolved, which is also another way that speaks to your authenticity, right? Is that as you evolve, as you grow, as you change, your platform is going to change. So I guess my question in saying all of that is, when you switched over first from weight loss coaching to letting the world know, like, I'm going to talk now about body positivity. I'm going to talk now about embracing who you are and letting the world, so to speak, see my scars. Did you lose followers, gain followers, a little bit of both? How was that for you?
Yeah. So it wasn't a seamless transition by any means. When I started, I didn't choose to start sharing my recovery journey, to say it bluntly. When I, was put in a position where it was like, do I continue this path of restricting myself and trying and putting on a facade and photoshopping my photos and eating as little as possible and going through this binge restrict cycle and running away from, my issues with PTSD. I was caught photoshopping online by a couple of friends that I had that are no longer friends, but it was like, oh crap. Like, because when you're in your disordered thinking, you will do anything your eating disorder will do anything to convince you that your actions are okay. Mm-hmm. In my case, I really thought that my photoshopped photos were me. Like, my brain was so warped and my reality was so warped. I couldn't control myself. And so when that happened online, I was bullied. I was getting death threats. I was, all of these gossip forums started going around. And although that was one of the worst moments in my life, I look back at it and thank those past friends for, not for doing that, even though they could have handled it a much different way, Yeah. So, it was that moment where I was like, do I continue this path or share authentically? Mm-hmm. And, I realized that I had owed I think I had like 80,000 followers at the time. I had owed those 80,000 people that I was wrong. I was wrong, and I had this whole thing not figured out. And I wanted to share my journey and learning the truth of how manipulating our society is and manipulating eating disorders, disordered eating, and body image issues can be.
Wow. First of all, thank you for sharing all of that. You've said so many things that I'm like, okay, Akia, rewind. Let me try to go back and recap. Cause playing interviewer here, there's so many things that I want to dive into. Okay. So let me take it back. You started photoshopping your body because of pressure on social media to look a certain way.
Mm-hmm. Yes. When I started, I don't even remember the year. Oh man. So this year's 2021. It may have been like 2017. Mm-hmm. That's when fitness influencers were on the rise. Yeah. YouTubers and sharing their workouts and stuff. And I had already been 2 years into disordered eating habits and eating disorder and all of that. And so when I saw that people were doing this, I felt so attracted to wanting to be like them. And these people were bikini competitors. So they were, trying to get as little as body fat as possible.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want to do that. Like, why not? I'm an all or nothing person. As you probably can tell. So it was either I'm not going to do anything or I'm going to go all in head first. I don't even care the consequences. So I dabbled in a lot of things like, binge eating, but the reality of it is a lot of fitness influencers take steroids, and a lot of these, larger platforms do take anabolic steroids. And so I got into illegal substances as such. And that also messed with my mental health, my hormonal health.
Right.
And so I had to deal with a lot of that post-recovery.
Yeah. I mean, because we don't even think about it, when we're actually in the height of the disordered eating or binging or any of that, the negative effects that it also has on you physically. And so I totally could understand that. So I want to really highlight something that, just an overarching theme, right, that you've been talking about. And this is the theme of today's event, which is rescuing you, becoming your own safe space. So what I have heard you say, and again, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but what I've heard you say is that you were in a physically abusive relationship. You were dishonored and you were treated badly by people who you thought were friends. You were treating yourself badly because you were trying to be, what everybody else wanted you to be. And a lot of times when I think about stuff like that, I think a lot of times identity, right? And knowing who we are first and foremost. So did you have to kind of go through that process, when you decided to change over your platform, did you have to go through this discovery process of let me find out who Mick is and then the healing began? Or did you always know who you were, but you had spent some time trying to cover that up?
The abusive relationship that I went through was actually called intimate terrorism. So it's where the abuser uses all forms of abuse onto their partner. So that includes physical abuse, mental abuse, or emotional abuse, financial abuse, sexual abuse, reproductive coercion.
Wow.
And so I was stripped away of pretty much every ounce of me. He was actually the person who taught me how to purge, and really fed into the me learning how to binge as well, because he restricted my food, and it was this whole I had nothing except for him. And so when I left at 21, I decided to go backpacking and trekking through India to find myself.
Yeah.
And, my expectations were I'm going to come back a changed person. And although that trip was probably one of the best trips of my life. And I got to, trek through the Himalayan mountains. But when I came back, because I was so malnourished when I left, I came back a lot heavier, and I was so thrown off, and it almost ruined that whole experience, because there I didn't have any mirrors. I didn't have any, I literally had nothing. I didn't even have my phone. And so looking at myself for the first time, it was just after 6 months, it was a shock. And instead of coming back a changed person, I went back into the cycle of binging and restricting. And it wasn't until 2 years later where I had called my dietitian, left a message, I'm almost positive, and said, I need help. And I was living in Arizona at the time. And so I moved back home and into my parents' home. I had zero source of income. So I was stripped back to nothing, nothing.
Yeah.
And I had a whole team of professionals around me. I had a psychiatrist, a psychologist,
All of the ist.
yes, a dietitian. I was seeing my general practitioner for my hormonal issues, and like all of the above. I just had to trust my body because I was stripped away from everything that I thought I was. It's a blessing in disguise. I got to learn who I was, because for a very long time, I was nothing. Like I was stripped away of everything that I could have possibly been. So a blessing in disguise, but through getting professional help, I discovered myself, and I got to share that on social media, which was amazing.
Yeah. Gosh, I'm like, okay, I'm going to just like breathe and like soak this in, because, oh my gosh, like I could ask you 1,001 questions. One, because I'm naturally curious. I don't think I've ever heard that story to that extent. Wow, Meg, you've been through a lot of stuff.
But it's a blessing, you know?
And that's the part where I'm looking at you and I see resilience, and I see the ability to bounce back, and the smile that radiates from your face despite all of the drama and the stress. And so with that, I mean, I guess the most natural question would be, I trust that you have become your own safe space. I mean, right? Because if everybody else, everything else in the world is going to hell in a handbasket, you always can come back to you. And it's so sad because so many people don't understand that they're an option. I know that I didn't even understand that I was an option. I always thought that I had to rely on my safety in other people. But now I see it differently, and you've gotten that lesson. You've learned that. So for practicality, what are maybe the top 3 ways, right, that our audience members could take away from your story of how you learned to become your own safe space? And what does that mean to you?
You know, I'm not always my safe space. You know, those who deeply struggle with mental illnesses, you know, like sometimes I'm scared of myself, and I always go back to my toolbox. So my therapist and I want to quickly mention that, like, I am so fortunate to be able to have access to therapy, because that is such a privilege with healthcare costs, and you know, my whole team of doctors, it did cost money. And so that came at a very like, I was very privileged throughout that whole process. And so when I give people advice, I want to keep in mind that that's not always accessible, although it will be my first recommendation. And there are, you know, resources that are free. So my top 3 things are things that you can do right now, because I'm that kind of person. If someone tells me like, just love yourself, I want to like rip my hair out. I'm like, you gotta tell me what to do, because like, I need to like do something, you know?
1, 2, and 3.
So my first, you know, thing that helped me so much was unfollowing everybody or muting people on all of my socials, and clearing my feed of people that made me compare myself, that made me feel like a lesser version of myself, that, you know, really just deterred me from finding out who I really was and make decisions on my own. And that includes like friends and family members, because those people can be big triggers for you as well. You know, I went through a like long period of like internal like warfare with myself, because, you know, like some friends were very triggering and I didn't want to unfollow them. So thankfully Instagram came up with the mute button, which was like the best thing. I constantly use that. So that would be my number one. My number two would be to clear your closet. So I'm gonna give a couple of options because I know that clearing your closet may not be available to those who are in financial situations. So one thing that I did when I was going through recovery was clear my closet with a friend of things that I kept from high school, things that I held on to, you know, thinking that when I get this certain body, I'm going to fit into it and it's going to be the best thing in the world. In reality, those clothes had been sitting there for like 2 years.
Girl.
And I also had tried to like fit into them as I like,
Yes.
It was just a complete toxic behavior and it was so emotional. And not to mention having so many clothes in front of you is like, it's so much anxiety.
Yeah.
You don't know what to pick, you know? So going through my closet and donating, selling clothes that didn't fit me anymore, that I didn't like anymore, was so liberating. And for those who cannot sell or, you know, purchase a new wardrobe, what I did was held a clothing swap with my friends. So we all got together and we, you know, brought clothes that didn't fit us anymore and we all tried them on and we had drinks and it was so fun and it was so lighthearted. And I felt safe knowing that my friends knew my situation and it was such an amazing experience. So that, and then third would be to, you know, take care of all of the like simple human things like shower, sleep, and remembering to nourish yourself. My dietitian once said to set reminders on my phone to so that I remembered to nourish myself, and I still use that to this day because I have ADHD and I'm so busy all the time. So I'm like going from one thing to the other, and I'm like, whenever I get that alarm, I'm like, oh yeah, I have forgotten to eat. I'm cranky and my eyes are like drooping down to here. And so brushing your teeth, like taking care of those little things can make the biggest difference. Because sometimes when you're really, really low, it's hard to remember that, you know, showering is at least going to make you feel 1% better. Going outside will make you feel 1% better. Taking deep breaths. So those would be my three things, even though they were packed with like a million different.
No, I love them. I love because they're very practical. And, you know, the one thing I want to say is that a lot of times, you know, people think that cleaning out your closet is, you know, just strictly that. And it doesn't kind of correlate into all of these other areas of your life. And, you know, what I heard you say was that when I cleaned my closet, I felt safe. Knowing that, you didn't say this part, but I'm just assuming. So I'm gonna put words in your mouth because this is how I interpret it for me, because this is the same. Knowing that when I go in my closet and I put on a dress or I put on a shirt or I put on a pair of pants, that they're going to fit. And I am not going to be reminded that I am no longer the girl that I used to be, and that's okay. And so I think that that is a very important mental health step. And even if you don't have issues, right, with food, with weight, with your body image and whatever, and let's just say, you know, you just have a hard time letting go of things, I think that that exercise of going through your closet is even good, because what if you're holding on to an item of clothing that you are emotionally attached to for all the wrong reasons, like because you were with an ex-boyfriend and that ex-boyfriend said, oh, you look so good in that, but that was not a healthy relationship. And so every time you look at that, like there are just so many different nuances. And I'm not saying it's the same for everyone, but yeah, those are really, really good tips. And I am gonna take those to heart and continue to do those things. I so appreciate you.
I appreciate you.
I just want you to know that I appreciate you. I love you. I love your platform. I get it. And I just think that you have a heart of gold. And you made a great point where you talk about access to mental health care, which, segues very, very nicely into what the foundation, Real Girls Foundation does, who we are, and you were a perfect fit for this event today. So thank you again, Mick, for coming on today. You're going to be on the panel later, so don't go anywhere. And all of you out there in audience land, thank you so much. I hope that you enjoyed Mick. Stay tuned. What's coming up next is a video that with a special message from yours truly about the foundation and how you can help us give mental health care access to those who need it.
Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Akia Red. My friends and my family, they call me Keys. And because of you and your generous support today and taking out time on a beautiful Saturday, you get to call me Keys as well. I am so happy that you have chosen to spend 2 hours of your Saturday with us. It started off as a small seed back 4 years ago when I was going through my very own mental health journey. And I was seeking for community. I was seeking for a place where I could belong. It was hard to find, believe it or not. Many of us don't have access to mental health resources, nor is there awareness in our community. And so that's where the Real Girls Foundation comes into play. We not only want to provide resources to those who are in underserved communities for mental health, but we also want to provide mental health awareness. We see the value and the beauty in uplifting and empowering the next generation of young girls. And so today, you can help me pay it forward by going to akiared.com, clicking on the very top icon of the website, the Real Girls Foundation. There you will be linked directly to a place where you can donate maybe $1, maybe $2, maybe $20 or more. But every little bit helps. Anything you can give to us will help us continue to pay it forward, to help us continue to teach young girls to be fearless, authentic, rescuers by going back into their own community, and then trailblazers, blazing the trail, doing something that has never been done, kind of like what we're trying to do here today. So again, thank you so much as friends and now as family, a part of the Real Girls Foundation, for joining with me, partnering, and making the world a better place for all of us real girls. Hey, everybody, we are back. So like I said, on the video, we said akiared.com, but you can also go to the realgirlsfoundation.org and it'll take you straight to the donate. That should make it a little easier for you. We are so excited about the work that we are doing in the community. There's been an uptick, as we were talking about before we actually went live, in just suicide, the calls to the helpline, and the ages are getting younger and younger. And so I have some wonderful women, along with Mick, that's going to join the conversation now. So with us today, we have Erica Drury with Aligned Nutrition. Hi, Erica.
Hi there.
I never say your last name right, so I apologize.
It's a mouthful. A lot of people get it wrong because it just kind of runs together.
Yeah, well, listen, she is, let me tell you something. This woman is, she's my hero. That's what I'll say. I don't say that just for kicks. I mean, I'm not blowing smoke, nor am I trying to mess up your pretty mascara, but she is my hero. She has worked with me, and this is the first event that we're actually doing together. So I'm so happy to have you. And then the next guest, Miss Davia Stevenson. Hey, Davia.
Hey there.
How are you? So this is what's hilarious about Davia in my story, okay? What's really funny is that this is the first time other than Instagram that I've ever seen her in person. And it's not even in person, it's virtual. Hello, COVID. But funny story, this friend of my husband's comes over and says, hey, there's this woman that I worked with, and I think she would, you and her could do some work together. So I literally, because I was looking for a woman of color who was a clinical therapist, reached out to her on Instagram and said, hey, I'm doing an event. Would you help me? And I knew nothing about her. But it's literally just my gut instinct. And I know that you have a lot to say. So welcome.
Well, thank you. Akia, I've been following you for a while.
Oh, you have?
And we have a whole lot of connections beyond that one young man. And it's kind of ridiculous that we hadn't met before. But I just so support what you're doing, normalizing mental health care and access, trying to improve access to mental. That is my passion as well. And to do it through your own personal story. So no, I've been trying to get at you for a minute because I feel like we've got some dual purposes here coming from different directions. So I'm so excited to be here today. I appreciate you reaching out.
I'm happy to have you. And then please, everybody, welcome Miss Mick back onto the stage. Hey, girl. Hey.
It was cold.
I see. Well, that's good. You look comfy and warmer.
Yes, I am.
So there's a lot, right? There's a lot that Mick said to kind of dive deeper into and to unpack. But you know, Erica and Davia, you guys both have like a tremendous wealth of knowledge and work that you've done over the years. So why don't we just take a few minutes before we like get into my questions for you? Why don't you, one after the other, Erica, starting, tell us about yourself.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. And thanks for what you said earlier. That's really awesome. And it's the why behind why I do this work. So thank you. I think there's this bigger picture. There's this bigger talk of, you know, social justice and, you know, this activism piece. And then I'm kind of over here helping individuals heal from their experience in this society, in this culture. And, you know, I have a private practice where I work with people individually. I'm a dietitian that helps you heal your relationship to food, kind of undo some, you know, we start out this world completely innocent from these concerns. We are comfortable with our bodies. We aren't thinking about how our bodies look. And that's, you know, in being here today, my message really aligns with yours, Akia, and what you're trying to do of, you know, helping young girls feel comfortable with themselves, feel beyond that confident in themselves. And that is often interfaced as a dietitian with food and body image. And we receive so many negative messages about being smaller, eating less. And that's something that I'm really passionate about, helping people reverse and celebrating food and their bodies. And thank you so much for having me today.
Absolutely. Welcome.
And I am, if you're ready for me.
Yes. I was just looking at you like, go, Davia.
Okay. Yep. Davia Stevenson. I'm a licensed professional clinical counselor. I also work in a private practice, group of individuals that have joined together. And I am simply overwhelmed. I came to even this career a little bit later in life. And I hear all this wisdom from each of you. And I thought, man, if I had been there even 10, 20 years ago, how much broader, how much more I would have to say, how much more I would have learned myself. I became a counselor because I benefited from counseling. And so that's how that process got moving. But I shared earlier that one of my passions is normalizing mental health care. I think of depression and anxiety as the common cold of your emotions. Everyone's going to get a cold. This used to be a good example before COVID. Now you can't have a cold symptom without being judged, but let's pretend COVID didn't happen. And you sneeze or cough like you do with a normal cold. And you know what to do. You know, to drink fluids, get some rest. You know what medicines to take. No one judges you for having a cold. Well, every one of us, for a number of reasons, is going to have a clinically significant, at least one episode of depression and or anxiety. And we should know what to do without judging ourselves, without being afraid of being judged. We should know what to do. And then again, access is also an issue. And so when you touch on all of these things, on disordered eating, on body image, on self-image, on self-worth. These all fit in the web, in the soup of things that, and social media messages. Social media is wonderful. There are movements that have been gained progress because of social media. It's the way you market your business, but there's a dangerous side. You got to know it's marketing.
Yeah.
And that dangerous side is harming our young people, and I would say especially young women. And that, as we were saying earlier, the ways we develop our self-worth are not the same. We have so many distorted images in front of us. They come quickly. So many distorted messages. It's not really what you get, what you do, or who you know, or how you grow. It's what do you look like? What do you eat? It's just false images. And so we're seeing younger and younger incidences, high anxieties in young people, and certainly suicide attempts much younger. So I am thrilled to have you younger women. I am fully the senior person on this panel. And I am so encouraged at your platforms and your access to spreading truth to younger women. I love it. I love it. I'm thrilled to be here.
Well, welcome.
Yeah.
And for those of you just joining, we have Mick Zazon. She's back joining us on the panel, and so we're happy to have her back, and she's going to be answering more of my curious questions. Just trust me, I have more, and more have come up. But so what's really interesting, when I first started thinking about what type of wellness series I would have, right? So I always like to do something different every summer. I choose the summer because I think that in the fall and winter, there's so many other things, in Columbus, Ohio, you have OSU sports, which is huge. You've got the holiday season. And so people have more to do. And so it's not until we start getting into like January, February, around this time, where the sun is not out. And so people start, getting the seasonal affective stuff and all of that. And so summertime, people are out and about, but I just feel like in the culture, there's so much pressure surrounding like food, body. And then that goes in and that impacts, Davia, our mental health. Mm-hmm. And, it's kind of like, man, they're just so attached to each other. And so that's why I was very specific about having the three of you on, because there are very specific things that you guys all speak to. And like I said earlier, I wasn't really, you don't know what you don't know. So I wasn't aware that I could even be my own safe space. I didn't know that I was an option. And it wasn't until I was going through EMDR, and please, no one put in the comment section, what is that? Because I just know it as EMDR. Now, unless Davia wants to type it in, because she probably knows, and you can go ahead and do that. But other than that, you can Google it. And it is a long name. But anyways, I was going through EMDR, and the therapist who was administering this technique, she says, who are, in the beginning of the session, she's like, who are your safe people? And, I am acknowledging my safe people, and my safe people are everybody but me. And so she says really softly, you can be safe too. You can be your safe space too. And I was just like, I had never thought of it. And with good reason, because I actually wasn't safe. I think sometimes when you are so trained to, by negative things that you're taught by other people, you begin to do it, like give it to yourself, and you begin to believe it yourself. And so then that's where the negative self-talk comes in. And so I wasn't safe. I beat myself up, probably worse than I would beat anybody up. Mm-hmm. So I'm just learning how to become my safe space. COVID taught me that. And because I had no choice, I was at home. And so that's where this idea came from, is a deeper discussion into this. So Erica, you said something about, helping women feel comfortable in their own skin. And I want to know, how does feeling safe within yourself connect to body image, connect to food, and having a better relationship with those things?
Yeah, it's it's a great question because it's a lot. When I'm working with people, a lot of times we end up talking about these internal feelings and beliefs that we have about ourselves and these external messages. And I'm speaking from a biological standpoint here. So if you're, say, eating in a way that's, I eat when I'm hungry, I eat what sounds good, I eat what my mom has in the pantry, you're coming from an internal place. You're following your hunger cues, you're following what your body's telling you need, and you're kind of it's that blissful time in your life where like, I didn't really think about it. I just ate food. A lot of us, that's like toddler age or very young school age, before you get to school and you eat lunch at 10:30 and your teacher tells you, not to eat your cookie and eat your apple first or whatever, So then we have these external messages from society. And I'm speaking specifically about food that says, don't eat this, eat that, eat at this time. And I'm not speaking more about this kind of nutritional research. Like, I'm a trained dietitian, to help people improve their health through eating, but I'm talking about diet culture. I'm talking about diet culture as a large it's defined technically by Christy Harrison, another dietitian who really looks at our society and just overall, the industry of dieting, and how the whole overall goal is to make money off of you, to sell you another diet, to sell you another supplement, another detox, another cleanse. And so that's the external messages that I'm talking about. So I'm getting to my point about the safe space, but really it's this idea that these internal messages, if you're able to either continue to follow those throughout your life, or like most of us get kind of reconnected to you, like Akio, when you were talking about like myself, it's like, oh wait, I can decide what I want to eat. Oh, I can put a snack together. Oh, I can eat at any time of day that I choose to. There's this freedom in reconnecting to your internal place. So you do become your own safe space. When I'm working with people, the point is I'm kind of like crutching their leg a little bit, and then they're going to walk away. The point is that you are the expert of you and your own body. And so I try to help people kind of undo that external stuff, and then you have to become your own safe space with eating.
So what are some of the things that, happen to disrupt, I guess, like our safety? I mean, I know you gave the example about, the parents, that tell their kids like, well, hey, like, don't eat that first, eat this. My husband and I we were out last night for family dinner. And one of the things that, he told me, he was like, I'm done. I'm leaving this food on my plate. He says, but I was raised to finish your food, because there are people who, don't have as much. And so we were just talking about those little messages that we receive. What are some others?
Yeah, I always think of it, and I think Davia could definitely dive deeper into this piece if this is a place you want to go. But I do think of it in terms of the food piece, or especially body image, and kind of where a lot of times body image can be impacted, and then people start to do something about it with the food. So we can kind of weave in a little back and forth if you want, Davia, about this. But in terms of with the food piece, there's this kind of coming down from society. And then we have those channels of like peers, parents, and media, where you're getting this information of, hey, when I was at home, we lived with food insecurity, or my mom was really rigid about, when I ate, or I had to eat, these certain foods before I was allowed to have these certain foods, or whatever kind of your experience was around food. Then you as a child, you kind of made your own meaning out of that. And, what did that mean? And then how do you respond to that? So like you were saying about your husband the other night, it's like this kind of like, it becomes irrelevant essentially, where you're like, okay, I know I have enough food on the table. I know that I don't have to finish it. But I feel this odd sense of, guilt if I don't. And it's important to kind of, hey, I see you there.
Yeah.
As an adult, I try to, listen to how much I need to eat and how much now, and, I can bring this with me later. And I think everyone has their own experiences with food growing up, or the messages that they've received outside of themselves through peers, parents, or media. It might have even been, you're in kindergarten and you hear someone call someone else fat and you don't even know what that means, but you know it's a bad word. And just like these little things that happen to you throughout your lifetime. And then, when you're learning to become your own safe space, it's, I think, taking a look at those and then trying to decide, well, what feels relevant? And then what do I want to pull forward? Here's what that meant to me at the time. And then, how do I want to eat or think of my body?
Dave?
I totally agree with everything Erica said. Food is more than food. Food is culture. Food depending on how you're raised, food is safety. Food is a distraction. Food is a punishment. Food is a barrier. It's all manner of things. It's just like when you talk about a marriage, people say that in marriage, the things that people fight about are money and sex. It's not because they're fighting about money and sex. It's what those things mean to you. And so food has been given all of these other meanings other than nourishment. And so what do we do with our babies when they cry? We put a bottle in their mouth. So you begin to make an association with food and comfort. Erica mentioned, what if you had food insecurity? So then you may hoard food. What if it just so many different meanings. And then add on layers like Mick was talking about, trauma, abuse. Food can be an escape. Food can be the one thing you can control. You feel like you're controlling, so you restrict. Food can be a barrier. A lot of times in disordered eating, you find that people overeat, pack on weight to make themselves safe. If I'm fat, then I won't be a target for an abuser. And so it makes it very layered because you have to eat.
Wow.
Right? You can't just say food is dangerous for me, so I won't eat. You can, but we know that that's a very dangerous end. There was something Mick said. I took so many notes. It's just like therapist went back to school today. One of the things I take from much of what you ladies have been saying is that things that help to maintain some sort of healthy space in our mind and in our emotions generally aren't sexy. Mick said, where did I write it? I liked one of her posts called Dear Body. You were in the shower. You may have, I just thought that was such a beautiful post. It said, Dear Body, you deserve to eat. You are enough and you are worthy. And who would think that food would connect to worth or food would connect to value? And so it is very complicated. And I, when someone with a disordered eating situation comes to me, kind of depends on where you are on the spectrum. I think that requires a specialist and a nutritionist, medical intervention. And so oftentimes I will refer out. But depending upon where we are, we can deal with it as an anxiety disorder. We can deal with it as trauma recovery. Often so layered. Now, if someone's in a dangerous space and their health is at risk, I for sure refer them to specialists. And now I've got another name to add to my group of folks that I send people to. And what do you do? The things that maintain aren't usually sexy. Social media. Put in some boundaries to the information that you allow to take in to vicariously re-traumatize yourself. I took breaks from the news many times over the last year.
Oh boy.
I was finding myself becoming angry and bitter and closing off my channels only to information that I would agree with. And I was becoming something I didn't like, I didn't respect. So I had to set some boundaries. Clearing your closet. I did a little video one time on spring cleaning being not just for your closet, but for your mind.
Yeah.
And, but those things in our physical environment, I love that Mick said, keeping clothes that were maybe associated with a negative experience. You might not even know that. And you put it on and you feel a certain way. I've gone about accepting my body. I've put on some pounds during the COVID season. And a lot of that was fun. My husband and I would cook dinner together. We hadn't been around having dinner every night for years. And so we're cooking dinner and opening a bottle of wine. And I put on a few pounds. I'll get around to it. I'm still healthy.
Mhm.
And I still have my relationships. And I still have my career. And I still have friendships. So if I'm 15 pounds heavier in the only body that I'll ever get, right? The only one I'll ever get, it's been changing from day one.
Mhm.
It will change until I die. And it just bears evidence of your story. It's fine where it is on the day that it is, right? And so, yeah, it is very layered. And these messages of you're not enough are hitting folks younger and younger and younger. I was just thinking of a personal story. When I started to develop, I was an earlier developer. And I remember my brothers who love me very much. And they think that I'm attractive. And they always say that. But I remember the first messages being, I know this is daytime, but you trying to spread that ass over 2 chairs? I thought that meant I'm fat, something's wrong. What they were brothers uncomfortable with the fact that their little sister had a figure on her. Mm-hmm. And so rather than say, wow, Davy, you're developing beautifully, maybe that would have been creepy, I don't know. They made a smart ass remark that has had effect on how I see myself for many years. Mm-hmm. We do that in our families unknowingly. Mm-hmm. So it's a very layered topic, and I'm just, I think it's important to approach it from a number of angles.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, today we definitely won't get to all of it because it is so layered. And I think, to you and Erica's point, it means something to everyone that's different, and I mean, me and Mick have gone through some similar things, but what it means to her versus what it means to me, even though, our stories may be parallel, it's still, different. So Mick, one of the things that I've always been curious about with you, being that you have such a huge platform, you've got eyes on you from all over. And what do you do on days when you're not loving yourself, when you're not feeling your safe space, but you've put up this persona, right, on Instagram, and so you're expected to always be great?
I think one of the best parts of me finding myself and being stripped away of who I was and building myself up from ground zero was, and we talked about this earlier, the only option for me and what I knew was the only option was to be authentic and to be real. And so it did come naturally for me to share bad days. But I do tend to retreat from social media because a lot of the reason why I have bad days are from social media, even if it's my job, and I love my job. But some days, comparison comes into place because I'm on social media. I get burnt out. Like I'm on my phone all day, every day. So I make sure that I take my dog for a walk and I, stay away from screen time. And I FaceTime my friends if I'm not available to go out to lunch with them, and I eat with them on FaceTime. That's something that has been really healing for me, even throughout recovery, is to just eat with people. And I try my best to socialize myself in the real world, because a lot of times we get so fixated on who we are online. At least I do. I'm speaking from my own experience as a content creator. So I retreat back and I do the things that I typically forget to do. So shower, sleep, eat, all of those things.
Right. Yeah. So as you're talking, I was going to kind of go into like a little personal story. And I think that, when I'm finished sharing this, I'm going to probably look to all three of you to kind of add your experiences with what I'm sharing. So it's no secret, I struggle with anxiety disorder and major depressive disorder. Right. And It takes, it takes medicine, it takes consistent therapy, it takes exercise that I like, right? And that I enjoy to kind of stay healthy. And so it's been very important for me to have a relapse prevention plan. One, to keep me from relapsing from the eating disorder, and then one to keep me relapsing, back into anxiety or depression. So here's what's crazy. Here I am hosting this virtual space, talking about becoming my own safe space. And I'm going to be real here, since we're being real. The last year for me has been hard because yes, I learned how to be my own safe space, but quite frankly, I don't feel good every day. The medicine, the therapy can get me to about 80% on a good day. On a not so great day, I'm like at 65%. And so then it's up to me to make up the difference. And sometimes I don't feel like making up the difference. So Mick, you said something that was really important for, I think, our viewers to hear, is that you do the stuff that you wouldn't typically do, right? Because when I'm depressed, when I am anxious, my hunger cues get numb because all I can think about is keeping myself from being depressed or anxious. And food and water is not, I'm just trying to do and move around. So that's the first thing to go with me. And that's how I know that there's something kind of on the horizon. So I guess I'm saying all of that to say, when someone feels bad and they're taking their medicine, they're doing all the things, but it's just a day that their chemicals are not, I don't know, something's going on. What do you suggest, Davia, when it comes to them going about their day? Okay. Erica, what do you suggest when it comes to, eating, like eating things that are healthier for you versus the things that maybe you feel comforted for? Davia, you started off. What does somebody do? Do they do the things opposite or what? How do we do this?
Well, the first thing I think you need is a perspective change. You said on the good days, you get to about 80%. And we think there's this 100% out there somewhere that we're missing. We're lacking 20%. The 100% is a moving target. It doesn't exist. And so the way you give that 100% is that you live out of your 80. If you give all you can out of your 80,
wow,
then you're living 100% life. If you only got 65 and you're trying to live like you have 80, you're going into debt against yourself. You ever try to get out of debt, even financially?
Yeah.
Let's change our perspective to, this is what I got today. Today I have 20%. And I'm going to live with the 20 that I have. I'm not going to judge myself for the fact that I don't have 40 or 80 or 60. And I'm going to live with the 20 I have. And I'm going to get this through this day with the best that I have. And Lord willing, I get to sleep up and wake up tomorrow. Maybe I'll have another 10 and we'll do it then. But I think that perspective alone, what keeps us locked in is shame. And the biggest source of shame is our own voices. We believe what we say. We believe what we say. And so we act like our own experts and we're lying to ourselves. So that alone, that small shift, it may seem theoretical, but if you can just, this is the day that I have, and that's all you have. How many people know that there's a day before the diagnosis? Or I do. I've had cancer diagnoses twice.
Wow.
Talk about someone with body image issues. I've got scars all over my body, everywhere. Underneath my clothing looks like a map of some sort. And I remember when my first cancer, I was a senior in high school, I had bone cancer. And so much of my left leg is prosthetic. I have a scar that runs from below my knee all the way up to my upper thigh on the outer side of my body. And for some reason, I always saw that as a badge of honor. I didn't. I remember going to physical therapy once and having this therapist say to me, oh, well, shame you can't wear, mini skirts anymore. I thought it was a male physical therapist. I'm like, why not? Like, I'm so happy to have a leg. My story is phenomenal. And the fact that I even have a leg, but those little messages, right?
Mhm.
Listen to a couple of them. I come from a large African-American family where food is big and the holiday food is big. And so it's comfort and it's fellowship and it's all of that.
Mhm.
I have a nice shape that I don't know I have a nice shape because my loving brothers told me my behind was big. I then get surgery and I'm a breast cancer survivor, so I've got surgeries there. I've had to, in real time, look in the mirror and say, your scars are not evidence of your being less than. Your scars are evidence of your resilience. Scars show you healed from something. Dimples show you lived through something. Stretch marks show you lived through something.
Yeah.
It's normal, and your body changes every day. And so it's everything starts with something here. So when I'm working with clients, and believe me, I practice everything I preach, and I'm aware when I'm not practicing what I preach. That's been my message the last year. Davia, you say some good things. How about you try them out? All right. I deal with depression too, and anxiety as well when I'm not paying attention to myself. And so one of those things I always have and teach people to find little phrases that correct you. One of the things you shared is you've gone through therapy, and Mick and her story as well is that you have an awareness of when you're out of whack. You have an awareness of your being disordered.
Mm-hmm.
Much of that is through therapy. We don't know those things that drive us. We don't know that this is connected to this, or this is connected to unprocessed grief, or this is connected to trauma. So that's the benefit of therapy, or having someone with some expertise who could empathize with your story but be outside of it. And so these things, so you can catch yourself often before you fall off the abyss.
Yeah.
But relapse is part of recovery.
Yes.
Can we normalize that?
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you're not moving forward. You're not getting out of a loop. If you hopefully each time you go around, maybe you learn a little bit more about yourself and you step up a little higher. So the next loop is shorter, or you interrupt it altogether. And so I think we just need to, as we can, these are countercultural messages.
Mm-hmm.
We're told that Black girls have magic, and right, and we're going to all be boss babes, and the future is female, and all of these things. Though I think there's truth to that.
Yeah.
And those messages can encourage us.
Mm-hmm.
If we feel like we're not bossing somebody or not magical, what am I missing? Right. Finding those phrases that catch you. And I catch myself and stuff. I have a few. One is I can be judgy about my messages, right? And so one of them is, Davia, eat the fish, spit out the bones. You may not like the messenger, but you can learn something from anybody. So trust your brain, your life experience. For me, my relationship with God, other advisors, to help you kick out what you don't need, but you might miss some meat if you don't listen. Kick out what you don't need.
Yeah.
That's just an example of one of those quick messages I can say to myself when I'm finding my thoughts go awry.
Yeah, that's so good. I'm coming back to you. That is so good. Erica, what's your thoughts on that? My question.
I wanted to tag on to, in answering your question, I wanted to tag on to something that Davia said earlier about, anxiety and depression being a cold that you catch, and just really normalizing that.
Yes.
And then now what you said about the relapse piece, and just how we're just in it and we're getting out of these loops and we're learning and we're connecting with ourselves. And so oftentimes when it comes to eating, like you said, it's not, we've lived in a culture where we've been listening to external messages about ourselves. We might be not feeling like ourselves, or we're feeling certain emotions. That hunger fullness, there isn't this like magical where it's always just so obvious. Like, I know exactly what snack I need right now, and I know exactly how much I need to have. We're really just practicing and doing our best. Just kind of like, you need to go to sleep at night. Not like I need to be, this exact time and this, 8 hours and 3 minutes, it's going to hit me perfectly. Like, you just are really doing your best to take feedback that you're getting about your body and yourself, and then pulling that forward. And when it comes to being in this space where food might feel overwhelming, or you might feel guilty about it, or whatever, kind of anything that's interrupting that connection, you're basically just looking at nutrition as a form of connection to yourself and self-care. It doesn't need to be it can be something as unglamorous as just waking up and making yourself some breakfast, nothing you're too excited about. Or it could be, meeting up with a friend, going out to dinner with your husband to help remind yourself, because like Davia said earlier, it's not just nourishment. We do need nourishment. And so I think when you're kind of running on fumes and you're maybe looking to food for other reasons, or you're seeking food in some way, we can meet both of those needs, connecting with people we love, our culture, and looking at food in this way. I can eat a chocolate chip cookie because I'm sad, and I can also take a bath and call a friend. There's this neutrality that I want to be taken away with food, whether, morally, nutritionally, that we're really just, there's no perfect way to eat. You're just trying to connect with yourself, get feedback, take care, because sometimes taking good care, again, is eating a really boring breakfast because you need the nourishment to get through your morning. And other times it's having a chocolate chip cookie, taking a bath, eating a meal with a friend because you need love and you need connection.
Wow. Well, I think that answers it. Okay.
So order chocolate chip cookies today, IKEA.
Can I just say, I love, Erica, that you mentioned morally.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's huge. That's a big weight to carry with food. But yeah, there's a judgment piece. I hadn't thought to use that word before. I think that was brilliant. Just appreciate that addition.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's it's so interesting because holidays are always like really, really weird. And for me, in particular, just because, like I'm triggered anyway. Okay. And it just doesn't matter. But then the eating stuff on top of it, just kinds of, adds more flame to the fire, so to speak. So, I think when you guys were talking about, when you said chocolate chip cookies, dessert, like I have a sweet tooth, and and I've talked about, I have never in my life loved plain M&Ms like I love them today. And I didn't even know why. And so this is why I'm saying, like, this is so layered, and food does have such a other meaning, because like a couple of years ago, I had gained some weight, like, from the antidepressants and all of that. And, me and Mick have talked about how, your body changes with certain medications, and then, want to eat more, eat less, whatever the case. So put on some weight. I wasn't feeling super sexy. Here I am taught that my sexiness does not come from within. It is very much attached to what's outside. And so I'm not feeling good about myself. I get this strange infatuation with plain M&Ms. And in particular, the green ones, they all taste the same. Okay? They all taste the same. Let's be real. But the green M&M was my favorite. She has the heels. She wears the lashes. She's sensual.
Okay.
And I didn't even connect the two, but I was feeling so unloved in my body and so unloved in my space that, like, I literally would go and eat. I'd save all the green ones to the last bit. And I would just sit there, and as I would put one after the other in my mouth, there would be such a feeling of like desire and I never understood that could mean that I was not feeling love. I was not feeling sexy. I was not feeling sensual. And it's so crazy that as soon as I started my eating disorder journey, like work, and we discovered this, and I started finding safety in myself and started finding love, the desire for the M&M started to wane, and I wasn't eating them as much. And so I think that we develop these habits, right, that we don't necessarily know, like that they're attached to something else. And we have to look a little deeper, I think, at some of these meanings and be really curious about discovering that part of ourselves. And, Mick, I think a lot about your journey, when you're talking about how you were backpacking in India and you had nothing, like no phone, nothing, just completely off the grid. I would imagine that you allowed yourself to be super curious with yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
What did that curiosity look like, right? Because you were dating, right, yourself, basically.
Yeah. So I was on a trip with 4 other random people that I had just met, and I think it was interesting, and it kind of looking back, I'm not really sure if it was the safest space for me to be in, because we only had a certain amount of food. We had rations. We had all of these things. And so I was trying to find myself, but I still was paying attention to food the whole time. I mean, and it wasn't like I had the option to not have rations. I mean, we literally had a mule come in, give us rations every single week. And then, that was that. So I got to learn that I needed things like M&Ms, and I needed things like snacks and all of the things that I continue to love now. Because when I came back, I went and got like 3 cheeseburgers. I had not seen food, like normal food, in so long. And so I had to learn how to be my best friend throughout that whole time and trust my body that I was going to make it through until the end. And I learned that, India, in the place that I was, the villages that we were in were so tiny, like 4 huts per village. They had so little. I mean, the moms and grandmas would hike 3 or 4 miles a day just to get a pail of water. And they would carry these huge pine trees on their backs to get wood for fire to cook. And I got to witness all of that. And I think what I took away was that they were probably the happiest people I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
And it really put in perspective that each of us have our own things that we're going through. They don't know the life that I lived before. They didn't know that I was so really, really struggling with them giving me food and me not having an option to get ice cream after, because that's all they knew. And they were so happy. And so we're all around each other and we're struggling with different things, yet we have the opportunity to share our stories and learn from our perspectives. And so that was the number one thing that I learned.
Yeah. I mean, and you seem like based upon what you're saying, that you came back so much more well-adjusted, right? And centered within yourself. Do you ever have bad days?
Now? Yes,
Yeah.
all the time. All the time. It's, yesterday I had a pretty bad day, but I took a step back from social media and I called my friends and I did all of the things that I know I needed to do. And I woke up, and because I filled my cup up with things that I needed and filled my cup up with, love, today I share the love because I filled my cup up with that stuff. And so if I were to continue on and kept scrolling through social media or, kept on with a negative self-talk, today I wouldn't have love to share. I would have negativity to share. So yes, I have thousands and thousands of bad days, but they do get better. And the other day it was raining because it's been rainy in Ohio. And I was so annoyed with the weather that like Davia said, sometimes you're just like, all right, like we're at 20% today, but it's my 100%. And I'm just going to do it. And so I just stepped outside and I was just letting the rain fall on me. And I was like, okay.
Well, see, that was my next question. I was going to ask you, like, how it just seems like it comes so naturally to you. So like how do you motivate yourself?
Trial and error. I don't like thinking of listening to my body and misinterpreting it as bad. I just misinterpreted it. And so when I do misinterpret, I get to learn from it. And it's the same way with like me and exercise. Like I had a terrible relationship with exercise, and we so often force ourselves to go to the gym. We so often tell ourselves that we are like a piece of crap because we can't move our bodies and we have this lack of motivation. But in reality, like if we learn to like focus inward instead of focusing outward, we can have those trial and errors. Like I used to go to the gym and 5 minutes into biking, I'm like, nope, can't do it. And so I would just walk out, and the next day I would have a phenomenal workout. And then the next day I would have another one. And then the next day I would be so tired that I like can't function, and that's okay. But the same with mental health as well. Trial and error, misinterpretation, and learning.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really, really, really good. Davia, Erica, do you guys have anything else to add to what she just said? Or
Yeah, I love that. I mean, you never learn anything new in balance.
Yeah.
I remember my son was in second grade, and we moved here, and he had to learn a new reading system. And he was so frustrated that he just didn't get it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, we send you to school to be exposed to new information. You're not supposed to be an expert at something you haven't done. So if you're trying on a new perspective or whatever you're learning, you're not going to learn in balance. You're not going to start off as an expert. And the thing that I hear, kind of the thread through everybody's story and everyone's perspective, is this sense of just grace. Like, take a deep breath. Literally and figuratively, like actually really take deep breaths. That is an important therapeutic intervention. There's all kinds of research around it. And give yourself some room to be real. Real people have good days and bad days.
Mm-hmm.
And how freeing. One of the reasons why I think your platforms are so big is because you're letting people see that though many are exposed to me. I'm thinking of Mick in particular. I have bad days, and that's okay. Matter of fact, my bad day, I might need to take a break from you, and that's okay. And another thing Mick talked about was sometimes doing the opposite of what your mind is telling you. So she knows that when she's heading downhill, she needs to be social. There are others who pull away from that to be quiet. Either one is fine. Typically do the opposite of what depression is telling you or what anxiety is telling you. Right? It's outside of you telling you. You are not depression. You are not anxiety. People who have disorders, like you often hear someone call someone bipolar or autistic. No such thing. You may struggle with bipolar depression, which is simply a depression that's expressed in two different ways.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, very good.
It's a medical condition, right? For which you need medication and therapy. That's that. We shouldn't have all that judgment about it. There's a process, right? And so that's the common thread that I'm hearing. Like, give yourself some room to have a bad day. It's not a bad life. It's a bad day.
Yep.
Maybe tomorrow you'll have something that's more of what you need to have a better day. And then you live that one.
Yes. Well, really quickly, we're going to pause. Mick, thank you so much for joining us today. She is got some other stuff going on, so we're going to say bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, ladies, and then there were 3. So, wow, this is going to get interesting because, like, I have such curiosity for just, and fascination, right, with like mental health and just the work, Erica, that you do. And, one of the things that I think Mick said, I mean, she said a lot of powerful things, but one of the things that I really took note of is when she had said, when somebody tells you just to love yourself. Right. And so like, Erica, this, Davia, this, like in both of your scopes and realms of work right now, mental health, body positivity is becoming commercialized. And it's annoying because it's been around for a gazillion years. People have had mental health issues. People have had eating disorders, right? People have had disordered eating forever. And now because, yes, you could say the positive is that people are finding ways to treat it. And so therefore, but there also is like this very capitalistic,
yeah, for sure,
right? Sort of thing where people are getting very profitable off of selling a hope and a dream. And not pointing to the thing, Davia, that you said very clearly, is that there are good and bad days. Erica, you've said it. You said that it's not linear. And so I think one of the most important things that we could talk about is you guys' ideas that you could give to our audience about how they stay clear of buying into these commercialized, capitalistic versions of body positivity and mental health well-being. Whoever wants to go. And by the way, if you guys got questions, go ahead and type them in the comment section. We're here to answer those for you. But yeah, how can we stay clear of these commercialized messages?
Do you want to go, Erica? I can start. Doesn't matter.
I'll say just something really quickly, and then I think you'll probably have a bit more to say about that than me. And I think the way I see this piece feed into food and dieting is that constant, and I think especially for young girls or, people who would really benefit from this message, people who are, it's thinking about that you're really wanting to develop a resilience to a lot of these types of messages. And I think that's where, like what you were saying, Akia, about like this, kind of positivity around it. And you should feel it's this idea that you can't go from negativity into positivity always. And that there's this, and I want to hear more, Davia, what you have to say about this too, of this kind of like neutrality place where you're just taking care of yourself. You're getting to know yourself. Do I need to stay home? Do I need to go out? Do I need to call someone? Do I need some time alone? These self-care practices that are they're varied and there's no, cut and dry, but essentially you're getting to know yourself. And how that relates to food is a lot of times, what messages are you receiving about your body and how you should look? And then how are you doing something with that? As a young woman, are you deciding to, stop eating carbohydrates with your lunch because you heard that that's what you're supposed to do to be smaller or be more acceptable? Or like Davia was saying before, the stuff is so layered. It's not obvious. You're trying to be more safe. You're trying to fit in. Like we all have these amazing reasons for kind of falling victim to this type of industry. And I think kind of like you guys were talking about with the social media, it's like this double-sided sword. On one hand, it's really elevating a lot of messages that need to be having a bigger conversation. And then there's also this comparison trap and, seeing things that aren't real. And I think it can be the same way with, body positivity. I mean, first of all, it was really for fat people and fat acceptance. It wasn't meant for somebody like me. And so it's this idea that, you know, like you said, it's being co-opted and used in ways that are against us. And so how do we find our own safe space and be powerful without, you know, thinking that it needs to look like feeling awesome about yourself every single day?
Yeah, that's so good.
Yeah, and even being objectified, you know, in that way as well. So
You gave a lot of things to respond to. So when I talk about techniques that I use to keep myself in balance, one I call microscope, telescope. All right. The microscope will get me all caught up in the details, and sometimes I need that. Telescope is like, okay, stand back for a minute and see what's the landscape. And though there's a flood, it's on trend. Most celebrities have some sort of mental health something they're supporting. It's on trend right now, but it was silent before. And like I said, we don't learn things in balance. So it's just part of the process. It's overexposed. It will eventually, right? At least I think of those who would not have considered looking into caring for their mental health, normalizing mental health care was necessary and very important. And with all of the many things going on in the world, with the isolation forced upon people because of the pandemic, to the racial climate, and all of the historical trauma and present trauma that brings for people, though it feels overexposed, I'd rather that be the case than not right now. It'll tamp down. You know how our attention spans are. We're geared that way now. So it won't be this way probably next year, to be honest with you. It'll probably start to dim, but at least some have been exposed. So though it is annoying, I try to telescope that one. Like, okay, it's probably a good overall that we're feeling almost trivialized. The problem is that there are people who are speaking into that space who are not trained or authorized to do so. There's danger in everything, but I think overall, even though it's annoying, it's probably a good thing. The way you care for yourself as you find your person or your people that will be your experts, including yourself, because the loudest voice is your own.
Yeah.
So I love that the whole title of today's is Becoming Your Own Safe Space. This is the most dangerous space we have many times.
Yeah.
And we're allowing it to be influenced by people who don't live here.
That's right. Free rent.
Free rent. And so we got to be gatekeepers, right? Of our peace and of our and give ourselves, and within that gate, give ourselves some room to fail and learn something out of balance. At least you're trying, right? Who starts a workout program and is sore for a couple of days and can't move? Like, no one does it perfectly in balance. Yeah, I'm with you. And so I just keep getting back to grace. But here's something I want to say, just a telescope moment. All humans are the same in regard to what we need. All of us need love. All of us need belonging, to know where we fit. All of us need significance, security, purpose, and safety. Everybody.
Yeah.
And all of these places where we are disordered or insecure, or what is tied to these core longings, they're core to every human. And because of your personality developed, the life experiences you've had, there's some place in that core that's vulnerable, and it motivates everything. We just don't know that. Most of us don't go around knowing, well, you know, it's my core vulnerability and significance that has me blah, 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 blah. We don't know that typically. But that's how we are. And so I try to see people, especially those that are difficult for me to relate to, or those that I know I've taken in messages that are harmful to me. I'm like, this person has the same core longings that I do. And it's just their vulnerabilities cause them to act out in a way that is triggering to my vulnerabilities. But I get to choose the gate. I get to choose the gate. And it took many, many years to learn what were the processes for me to protect my gates. We often throw around the word boundaries. Nobody likes a boundary, but they're important. When you erect a boundary, someone is going to react on the other side of it. That's not your responsibility. to respond to how they react on the other side of it. Some boundaries are concrete. This is it. You don't pass, and I'm protected from the inside. Some are flexible.
Yep.
Some are perforated.
Wow. Yeah.
Right? There's a study, and I cite it all the time, and I can't remember the name of it, but it's been repeated in a couple of different generations. And it takes children on a playground and coming out of a building, like a school building or a rec building. When there's no fence, the children play close to one another and close to the building and close to whoever the adult is. When there's a fence, they play all the way on the fence. Some will climb the fence. Some will try to get around the fence. Boundaries give us freedom. And if one of your boundaries is, I will not allow anything inside these gates that I know is harmful. Okay, oops, it got through today, so I'll try better tomorrow. But that's my privilege. That's my responsibility. I get to do that. And you don't get to disturb my peace. That is one of my phrases. My peace is disturbed, and this situation is disturbing it. And giving myself permission to say, I'll talk to you later, or maybe I won't talk to you later, or you have a different access to my heart than you did before. I don't even have to tell you what my boundary is sometimes. It's my own understanding that, this don't feel right. Maybe you don't get to be here. Maybe you get to be here.
Yeah.
Maybe this space needs to be my own growing into balance thoughts, and they get to grow. And some grow fast and some grow slow. Some things need fertilizing, some things need therapy. Sometimes you need friends, sometimes you need quiet. It's all good. It really can be if you let it be.
Yeah. That's so good. So good. One of the things I heard about boundaries is it's me loving you and me simultaneously.
I like that.
And that was actually, I can't take credit, it was my therapist that told me that, but she's a smart lady. And so, yeah, that's what I'll say about boundaries. They've been extremely helpful in my process. We've got a couple questions that have come in. And so if possible, if both, I'm gonna start with you, Erica, and then Davy, if you wanna take it after that. The first one was, how can you change the way you view food if you have an unhealthy relationship with it? And then what would you consider the first step?
So as a dietitian, there is, I think, something that's important to know about nutrition. And it's that a lot of this data is completely correlational. As much as we wish there was this perfect way to eat, as a society, we are seeking this manual. Give me a list of foods, tell me to eat this and not that. And really, nutrition is so individualized in what foods nourish you on a physical standpoint and nourish you on a mental standpoint. So I just wanted to frame that out a little bit, because I think a lot of times having an unhealthy relationship to food can be seeking the right way to eat, the perfect way to eat. And again, you never asked for this. These are messages that have been delivered to you. And like Davy has said, now it's inside your fence. And so let's work through it. And so again, as a health professional, I want you to know that there is no absolute right way, perfect way to eat. So when we move into, this first step of changing your unhealthy relationship to food and kind of how to view it, one of the things that I like to bring into people's lenses when we start talking about this is this idea of allowing yourself to be physically and mentally satisfied from food. So a lot of times when I'm working with people who feel that they have an unhealthy relationship to food, it's because they're trying to follow this like prescriptive, right way to eat. And then you're not allowing, so maybe let's say you're hungry and it's time for lunch. And so you end up eating a salad with salmon on top, and you have dressing and you have croutons and you have all the stuff, but it's not what you wanted. You were thinking about having a peanut butter and jelly sandwich with some yogurt and fruit. So there's this again, and so let's say you eat that and you're physically full. You're like, that was pretty good. I'm done eating, but then mentally you're still seeking something. So it's not, again, and I'm almost making it more black and white than it is, but I want to introduce to you this idea that one of the first things that you can do in changing the way you view your relationship to food is that we have multiple needs to meet when it comes to eating, and only we know in those moments what we actually need. And that if you're physically full or you're physically fed, but you're wanting something else, you can, the next time it's time for you to eat, consider, or maybe you're dealing with a problem where you're like, I feel like I compulsively eat, chocolate chip cookies all night long, or I'm, eating ice cream and I'm not, also eating meals and I'm just, not feeling physically well. Again, there's no, right way, but this thinking about meeting two needs. So the next time you sit down for a meal, think about what you want to eat. And then also the idea that food can provide this physical need as well. And so just thinking about and that's okay. This is overly pathologized in our culture. When people hear, oh, dietitian, they immediately associate, you must only eat fruits and vegetables, or, oh, you don't look at my plate. And it's like, no, this is not a realistic view of food. We can have fruits and vegetables on our plate, and we can have a bun with a hamburger and French fries. Like, all of these things are nourishing our body. And so you are allowed to enjoy food, and that's okay if you do.
I love that. Wow, that's wonderful. Davia?
That was just so freeing. I'm just taking that in because I'm thinking, okay, low carb. No, it's what's the restriction? You don't eat for so many hours.
Intermittent fasting, yes. No.
Yeah, or it's this or it's that, and it's but it can be all of it or none of it, and to give yourself the moment to understand that food meets two needs, and you get to eat. You wouldn't think that would be revolutionary, but I think it is. It's so countercultural right now. So I love that you said that. And what goes along with that for many of us is this, I feel guilty, or guilt-free eating. Guilt. And that's a pet peeve of mine, the word guilt. It's a shame word. And I think one of the important skills for us to take to all of this is a pause. What's the rush? Pause, even if it's 10 seconds, to ask yourself a question. Just pause. And so where guilt comes in, we'll often say, oh, I don't want to eat that because I don't want to feel guilty later, or, I'm looking for a guilt-free meal, or this or that. And I'm like, guilt is not a feeling. It's a condition or a state that you earn from doing something wrong. So how about you pause and say, have I done something wrong?
Yes.
Have I done something wrong by choosing a chocolate chip cookie today because I had a sweet tooth? Have I harmed another person or harmed myself? Catch yourself. I have people often catch yourself saying how many times you feel guilty about something.
Oh, goodness. Yeah.
And then make sure you also write down what you did wrong, because if you've done something wrong, there's a remedy. Under the eyes of the law, you get to go to jail or pay a fine or do community service. The eyes of God, right? There's a remedy to guilt.
Yes.
And so, but the brain knows what to do with that word.
Yes.
We say it all the time. And so we punish ourselves. We attach it to food. We attach it to relationships. We attach it to everything. And it's undue. And so I love the idea of pausing. What's the rush? Even if your pause is 10 seconds, nothing's going to happen in 10 seconds. Pause and ask yourself, what do you want to eat? Am I feeling rushed and I'm just grabbing the closest thing to me? Well, if that's what you got today, that's what you got. Maybe you'll get tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right? Or am I feeling stressed and I just want those foods that comfort me? Okay, well, if you take a pause, you can decide if it's worth that to you. Well, you know what? It's worth it to me. I'm going to have this today. Or maybe I won't. And so I love just the way Erica presented this idea of there's no exact right way, and that everyone telling you have to do this to do that and do this to do that. And we're all trying not to get older. Can I tell you, as I get older, that this is a privilege denied to many? I'm not trying to shorten any days. I am okay with the fact that, coming with my age is a couple of aches and pains I didn't have before, and I'm grateful to have them. I don't know any old ladies. My mother didn't live long. Her mother didn't live long. This is a privilege here, and we're so busy trying to be something else, and we're missing the day that we have. And so you wouldn't think that a topic that you might think is as narrow as food in our relationship to food, you would think that would be a narrow topic, I would say. It is not at all narrow because we have to eat.
Yeah.
So you can't eliminate all the layers that go with it, but to give yourself a moment to pause, to hear some of your self-talk, if you're using the word guilt in your mind. So of course, I want everybody to write everything down. A big part of therapy, some of the techniques that I use, we hear things like cognitive behavioral therapy. What that is taking a minute to look at your thoughts and piece them apart and keep what's useful and get rid of what isn't.
Yeah.
But if you don't make your thoughts things, concrete, write them down. I like to have people write literally with pen, something with using your body. But if you're taking notes on your phone, that's fine. Take some time if you feel that food is one of the areas where you're out of control or where you're giving yourself a lot of those guilt messages. Take a pause. Write down. Start to write down. What are you thinking? What are you feeling? You want to sensitize yourself to what's going on before the action.
Yeah.
Thoughts, smells, feelings, impressions. The more you understand about your process of thinking, the more you get to make choices about conscious choices about what you choose to do with them. And so I would say notes. I'm not talking about a food diary just to judge what you're eating. That may be useful if that's what you're pursuing. I'm talking about an impressions, an emotion, a feelings diary about what's going on with you that day. I know that on a day that I'm tired or a day that I'm stressed, I'm not likely to have the bandwidth to make a whole bunch of choices about my eating. So, okay, that's the day. Thank the Lord for DoorDash or whatever. That's the day that something gets delivered. And it may not be a perfectly balanced, whatever that's supposed to be, meal. It's going to be the one that I have on the day that I'm alive in the body that I've got.
You just make things so, oh my gosh, like, I'm just like bowing to you.
It's the telescope. You just take it wide and it's really helpful.
You haven't filled our conversation with psychobabble. Like you literally have made it like so relevant and down to earth. I mean, I'm just sitting here like, wow, like there needs to be more clinical therapists like you.
Thank you.
I mean, literally, like I don't know too many that do. I mean, anyway, this is such a powerful conversation. The way you and Erica are, playing off of each other. It's more than I could have hoped for. We had another question and we're getting ready to wrap up. So we have about 2 more questions. This one, Erica, is for you. What are your thoughts on intuitive eating?
Intuitive eating is really a lot of what I've been describing today. I'm certified in intuitive eating. I have been for 10 years. It saved my own life. It's an amazing model and practice. And it's this idea of becoming, it goes along with what we've been talking about today in the lines of like becoming attuned with your body and getting to know it and listening to it from a food standpoint. Noticing where you feel anxiety in your body and how that impacts what you're going to choose to eat. And kind of like what Davia was saying about just really kind of taking note of that. As a dietitian, I'm often having people write down their specific food beliefs, and intuitive eating is a model that helps us go through a lot of those beliefs that we've received about society. And it is funny when you do it. It's not funny in a ha-ha way, but you can bring some humor into it. Like, wait a minute. So I'm not supposed to eat, I'm supposed to eat in my 12-hour window, but then I'm not supposed to eat past 8. So that means I have to wake up at this time. And then I have this specific food. And then I can't have this one. There's all these contradictions because in addition to there being no perfect right way to eat, we've also lived through a lot of food trends. So I've seen intuitive eating become trendy. And I just want to encourage you that it's not like a specific diet, a fad that's going to come and go. Intuitive eating has been around since 1995. There are over 90 studies supporting its efficacy and helping us become more in tune to ourselves and counting. So it's something that if you're in a place where that seems like a faraway dream, if you are able to get access, there is intuitiveeating.org. There are certified counselors, dietitians, health coaches all over the country who are certified in intuitive eating model. There's an amazing workbook, a book itself. So yeah, depending where you are, it might be something for you to help kind of get away from dieting, get connected to yourself, figure out what your definition of nutrition looks like. Or you might need, the help of somebody helping you work through it. A lot of times, if I'm working with somebody in an eating disorder, that is a hopeful endpoint for them, but not for everybody, depending on the factors. Yeah.
Right. Well, I know it was when I, just my word on that, when I first started the recovery, the intuitive eating was kind of scary at first. I mean, like it's exhilarating and it's exciting because you're like, ooh, if I want Alfredo, I can have Alfredo. What? Because all of these years that's been on, like I have had a list in my head of no foods, right? And on that list was Alfredo. It's like one of my favorite things ever. And bread and dipping the bread. Anyways, it's just like I digress. But it's just, for me, when that process or that concept was extremely exciting, yet I was so scared because I didn't have the trust in my body. Like you and Davia were saying, I just didn't trust my body, didn't trust my brain. I didn't think I was going to be able to cut it off. And so it can be a little scary. And so I think, to your point, Erica, like that's a great endpoint. And I think reading the book was very helpful because I got to understand. And one of the things is like my recovery team is also very skilled and versed in intuitive eating. So that's been very helpful to kind of help coach me through that. But they didn't start me, on that right away. It's something that you kind of like develop into, grow into. So it's, something that I'm practicing now and it's super cool. And no, I didn't lose any weight. I've actually maintained the weight, but that's okay, right? Because that's not, this is what my body wants to be right now, I guess. So it's what it is. But last question before we wrap up. Okay. What is your favorite self-care practice? Yeah, either one of you, you go.
Gosh, I have a few things that I do, but probably my favorite, honestly, depends on what's going on. Because I know that when depression is coming down, I don't enjoy the things that I typically enjoy, and that's one of my warnings. But I think consistently being out in nature is helpful to me. I'm very blessed to have a beautiful backyard. My backyard is beautiful. And whenever, matter of fact, that's where I'll be headed when I'm off here and where I was this morning before I came on. I just receive peace. So I love to be outdoors. And then my second thing, I think for self-care, honestly, is connecting with others. I am an extrovert to the core. People energize me. And so I love to be with other people. Isolating for me for long is not a good thing. I need to have some sort of connection. So those are my two favorites, being outdoors and connecting with people.
Awesome. Erica?
I would say for me, I am an introvert. So it is usually kind of checking in and seeing, I ask myself, what do I need right now? Probably 100 times a day, what feels like. And usually time alone is one of the biggest things that are revealed, and stretching. I have scoliosis. And so a lot of times my back will get really stiff, and just stretching, that physical tension will lead to mental tension sometimes in my mind. And so just stretching out my back can really help, and just kind of seeing what my body needs. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, those are all great things. I love to move, but I honestly think if I had to say what I did this morning, right before I came and logged on, I listened to 90s music really loud to the point where I can't think about anything else. So whenever my brain is going haywire, if I turn on 90s music and I turn it up so loud that I can only think about how loud the music is, then I'm good. And I would think, going out and riding my bike is another activity that I really enjoy, because I've always had this obsession with wanting to fly. So riding my bike kind of emulates that for me, where I feel like I'm flying through the hair that I don't have. The wind blows through pixie, believe it or not. And so, yeah, those are really cool things. And I think that it's really awesome that, you know, all three of us have different things, but yet the process is very similar. And in that, the important message is one of the best ways to become your own safe space is to ask yourself, what do you need for that day? So I think that's the overall message today, is to be intentional about asking yourself what you need and attending to that need and making sure that your needs are met first before you meet the needs of other people. Thank you so much, Davia. Thank you, Erica. It has been a pleasure. You have not seen the last of me, I promise. I'm not gonna bug you, but yeah, this was really awesome. And who knows, we might have a part 2. So you guys take care. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Enjoy your backyard, Davia.
Will do.
Bye. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. This has been a terrific event. I'm just so full. I'm so full with joy, and I don't know about you, but my soul has been fed this morning, afternoon, and now I feel ready to accomplish whatever I have for the day. So thank you so much. With gratitude, I wish you a wonderful weekend. Don't forget, if you want to help us pay it forward, go to therealgirlsfoundation.org. Donate, donate, donate. Every little bit helps. We love our girls, and we look forward to serving our community. I hope this has been a wonderful blessing to you, as it has been to us, and we'll talk soon. Bye.